This is Killian Bates 18256732. This is my psychology presentation for the end of year assessment. So the social issue I decided to go with was bereavement by suicide. It's not a field that has a lot of research done into it at the moment. Um, Naturally, with the high rates of suicide, there is a lot more research being done into people who are suffering from suicidal thoughts. But I still think that this is an area that needs to be researched, needs to be talked about, and it can bring down the suicide rate by stopping chain suicides, even if it is just a slight decrease. Uh, and then the effects of being bereaved by suicide of a close friend or family member. It can be mental or physical. It says there stress, depression, anxiety, um, physical health difficulties. We'll get into the specifics in a second. You can also feel like guilt, blame, shame. All these at the one time can be very, very overwhelming, and it can lead to this vicious cycle of depression, anxiety, obviously from the trauma, and going into that can cause loss of interest in hobbies as depression would normally, or loss of interest in certain activities. And the anxiety can then lead to eating problems or sleeping problems, which then can then lead to fatigue, low mood, and lack of socializing. And that again won't help with the depression and anxiety phases. The psychological theory that I think will have a big impact in this area is the identification with the crowd at a suicide prevention fundraiser promotes well-being amongst participants. So it's all about collective participation. They did do some digging on the stats, and they did find that 800,000 lives are still being lost each year to suicide, and that was a stat from 2017. Very recent. Um, so the way that they did this study in particular was they went to a darkness into light run. They stopped the participants before they went on the run and before they got interacting with the other participants, and got them to fill out a survey. And then after their run, after socializing and interacting with the other people who were bereaved by suicides, they took the survey again, and the results did show that actually they did feel a lot better mentally. Their mental well-being was a lot better. So that's what the impact of this theory will have on people who are bereaved by suicide. So it promotes good well-being, and it promotes talking, interaction. If you go back to the cycle, you're doing an activity, you're socializing again, and it kind of brings up the mood. So in the future, what I think would be ideal is more of these kind of events, whether it is more darkness into light events specifically, or if it's more of these type of events in general. Because the only big one that I think people really hear about is darkness into light. That's kind of the biggest one. I think if we had more of those, more organizations like that, I think it would be amazing. It would allow obviously more people to get involved, more people who are bereaved by suicide to get involved, which means promoting more mental well-being, and promoting more all-around good behaviors when you are grieving and when you are when you have been bereaved by suicide. It would also allow like researchers, psychologists, to do more studies like the one that they've done, to learn more about the effects of being bereaved by suicide, and help us understand the situation more, help us understand this social issue more. Like I said before, it would also lower the amount of chain suicides, and it would help us understand this social issue in much, much greater depth. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you for listening, and have a great summer.